not you that they're agreeing or disagreeing with, by the way. It's not, don't take it personal if they say, you know what, I really don't want you to read that verse. Okay, no problem. Treat them with respect, treat them with dignity, respect their decision. Don't be disappointed. Don't show disappointment. Just say, okay, hey, no problem. I hope sometime you'd like to look at that yourself, maybe. Maybe you've read a verse and you want to share it with them because, I read this yesterday and I've been really thinking about it. Can I share with you what I think about this verse? They may say no. And they may say, oh, okay. Because the way you're asking it is not, I'm going to teach you about this, even though that's what you're doing. The way you're asking that is, I read this and I kind of had to really think about it. Could I share that with what I was thinking about this verse with you? And even though you're subtly teaching them, it sounds like you just want them to hear what your thoughts are. And whether they agree with you or not, again, is not the thing. Here's one. Mention a sermon that you've heard recently in a very positive way. And listen, you don't need to mention my name if I'm the one that you're talking about. Maybe it's a sermon you heard online. You don't have to mention the person's name. That's not the important thing. The important thing is the message from God, what God's word says. But maybe you say, I heard this sermon recently, this preacher was talking about this. And it was so powerful. It really impacted me. Could I share that with you? Share links to our services. Donald mentioned we're on Facebook. We could also mention, hey, check us out, our YouTube channel. Can you just put in Pacific Church of Christ on YouTube and we'll come up. Pacific Missouri Church of Christ, or whatever the search is. You probably know it better than I do. But if you put that in and our YouTube channel comes up, now you've opened them up to hearing multiple lessons about God and about His Word and about Jesus. And what a wonderful thing that might be for them. A lot of people like using the internet. So if we take them to our Facebook page, invite them to our Facebook page. We'd love to have you check out our Facebook page. I think you'll find that we are a congregation of God's people that we're doing a lot of things. And we're trying to be the best we can be. But we're sure not perfect. But we are trying really hard to show people who God is and the love that God has for us. We'd love to have you check that out. Here's one. Anonymously leave a tract or one of our business cards. Donald mentioned this before about the business cards in the back. I don't know if anybody else took any. I hope some of you did last week, but if you didn't, you have an opportunity today. Take some of those business cards with you. Next time you're out to dinner somewhere, leave it on the table. They may throw it away. Yep, you're right. They may dismiss it entirely. Yep, you're right. They may. But they also might pick it up. What's this about? What's this about? We never know. But you can do that without saying anything to anybody. Read a tract. We have some tracts in the back here, but we also have others that have not been put out there. Our tract brochure thing is not very big. We get a lot more tracts than we're able to put out there. But if you've never taken any of those tracts and read yourself, and you may think, well, that's for people that are outside of Christ. How many of those are coming in the building, I wonder? Not too many, right? So if I, as a member here, if I take one of those tracts and read it myself, and I get something from it, how much easier is it going to be for me to share that tract and say, you know what, this tract is really good. It talks about God's Word, and it talks about this specifically. Would you be interested in reading it? And they may say, no, I'm not really interested, or they may say, well, I might. Or you may not say anything, but if they take it from you, there's a chance they're going to read it. There's a man that became a Christian in his 20s, actually his late teens. And about the age of 20, he fell away from the church. He quit coming to church altogether. He got married and had kids. His first wife passed away. He married a second lady, and their combined families, they had, I think, 2 children together, but she already had children. He already had children. And so they had a combined family for a while, and then time went by. He got into his 80s, got to the age of 82, and he began thinking about his mortality and the fact that he was going to die. And he had been taught from a youth what it meant to be a Christian, but he was no longer a practicing Christian, and he knew that. And he came to the Lord's church because he knew that was the church that he wanted to be associated with. That was the church that was talked about in the Bible in the New Testament, and he was restored after 60 plus years being away. Well, his second wife is not a member of the Lord's church. And so he wanted her to become a Christian, to become a member of the Lord's church. And that hasn't happened. But he hasn't stopped trying. He's now in his 90s, and he still hasn't stopped trying. And he's tried different things, but one of them was what Brother Webster brings out here. He would bring home tracts from the local congregation and leave them on the coffee table or on the side table where his wife sat. And she didn't read them. And he would continue to bring a new one, thinking, well, maybe this one will pique her interest. Now, she still has not converted to the Lord's church, but he hasn't stopped trying to share the message. He has gotten her to come on occasion when something outside of services is happening, a special meal or a special event. He's got her to come to those. So maybe that's one way you can introduce the Lord's church to somebody. We're having a prayer breakfast. Boy, it's so neat to come and have a meal together and listen to prayers being said for people and about people. Would you like to come with me to that? It's not a service, it's a special a time. Would you want to come to that? So sharing is not hard. We make it hard. You don't have to talk about doctrine when you share. You don't have to talk about salvation in the beginning parts of sharing. But it can lead to that. You're building a bridge from God to them. And that's what Brother Webster points out. And I think it's so important. You open the avenue of religious communication. And that's what Jesus did on many occasions. And that's what he did with the people in John 6. And even though many of them left him, that didn't make it any less important for Jesus to do that. And it doesn't make it any less important for us to want to share what we can, when we can, about Christ. Maybe you eventually build up that conversation with someone to the point where you're friends now. And maybe you finally get around to asking them something like this. Do you think God cares about everybody? And depending on their answer, maybe that leads to more conversation. Or maybe you ask them this, what do you think happens when we die? Now, as Christians, we know the answer. We know God has given us the answer. They may not have ever been told what the Bible teaches about what happens when people die. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in our sermon this morning. Or maybe you ask them, why do you think human beings are here on this earth? What do you think? Conversations are not hard. It's us making them hard or thinking we've got to know everything. And we really don't. So that little bit of role-playing that we did this morning, is that something you can practice at home? Absolutely. When you think you're going to have a hard conversation, and this has always been my idea or what I tell people when they struggle with how they're going to have a hard conversation, practice that conversation. You can do it before a mirror, doing both sides of the conversation yourself. You can do it in your head. You know, if you're doing it in public, it might look a little strange if you're having two sides of a conversation, but you can do it in the privacy of your home. Okay, if they say this, I'm going to say this. If they say this, I'm going to try to remember to say this. Are you going to remember every time exactly what to say? Of course not. Two things that I want to end with on sharer. And Donald was really, I think he's really good at this. And I'm picking on you, Donald, and I hope you don't mind. He doesn't like being thrust into the limelight sometimes, and that's okay. But one of the things that he's really good at is showing positivity when he talks. He did it in an open, I'm coming to you as positive as I can. You can maintain positivity even if they reject you. If they say, nope, not interested, no problem. You have a good day. Thank you for opening the door. Leave it. Go on. They're not ready. Continue on. Somebody else may be ready. Just be ready for that next person. Has anybody out here ever gone fishing before? How many times do you cast before you catch a fish? Once? Do you catch a fish every time you throw the hook out? No. We are fishers of men. I talked about that in the report last Sunday night. It doesn't mean we're always going to be successful. What it does mean, as far as leading them to Christ, but it does mean we're going to be successful in doing what Jesus said. Go and teach. Go and share. Go. That's a success. Just going is a success. Remember, we looked at Noah a couple of times in the last few months. He preached for 120 years and did not convert one person. His family was already converted. They were already faithful. He didn't convert them at the time of his preaching while he was building the ark. They were already converted. So he didn't convert anybody. All right, level 6. Connector. What is that? What kind of a level is that? Turn over to Acts chapter 2. Somebody read the last 2 verses of that chapter, please.
So continuing daily with one accord in the temple, breaking bread from house to house, ate the food with gladness and simplicity of heart, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved.
A connector is someone that takes non-members and connects them with their friends who are members. A connector is someone who invites their friends and neighbors when they also invite members of the Lord's church to their home. A connector is someone that helps to lead them to Christ by showing them, my life is filled with those of like faith. I'd like you to be a part of my life also. Hey, I'm having some folks over. Would you want to come and join us? Could there be some awkward moments? Absolutely. They're not a believer, they're not a Christian, and they're among Christians. But how better to show them who Christians are than to invite them to be among Christians? Brother Webster goes on to say, invite both groups to children's birthday parties. Stop by your friend's house when a church member stops by your house. Or go to a game or event with friends from work, family, and your church family. Introduce guests who come to church services to as many other Christians as you can while they're here. We get a visitor here, and you may be the first person to greet them. Hey, thanks for coming to service today. You find out their name. Tell them what your name is. Like, hey, I want to introduce you to some other people. And you bring them around. This is Donald Dodd. He's a good friend of mine. He's a member here. This is Jimmy Smith. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a member here. This is Brandon Carl. This is Brandy. This is Emily. This is Jill. You invite them to get that connection going as soon as possible. You're not badgering them. You're just introducing them to people, making them feel welcome. Or they go ahead and you allow them to sit down. But then you tell 3 or 4 other members, hey, there's a visitor sitting, let's say they're sitting over here in front of Jerry. Right in front of Jerry, there's a visitor just came in. And so 3, 4, 5 people go over and say hi to that person and make them feel welcome. How much better would a connection possibly be made? Well, let's take it to the other extreme. Visitor comes in and nobody greets them at the front. And they come in and they sit down and nobody talks to them. I think you guys can see real easily who's going to feel welcome and who's not. Every one of us can be a connector. Every one of us. It's not hard. It might be out of our comfort zone. Well, I don't know that person. Maybe they don't want me to talk to them. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they came to services. And so every one of us can be that connector. If you read that passage carefully, the one we just read in Acts chapter 2, day by day, every day, it was a daily walk with Christ. And that's what it should be for us. Continuing with one mind, one purpose, one idea. I want to connect people to Christ. I want to connect people to other Christians that hopefully will lead them to ask about becoming a Christian themselves. If I'm not doing that, then really shame on me. I should be a connector. And really all Christians, Levels of Evangelism is not for the preacher, not for the elders. It's for all Christians to get to the first level and try to move up those levels. Now, I truly believe that all it takes is that first time doing it and finding out, hey, I did it, and I didn't die. You know, I might think, oh, that's so uncomfortable for me. I don't like being uncomfortable. Nobody does. Remember, how many of us have started a new job? I think most of us probably have at some point. And you go in that first day, you're apprehensive. You may have all the training in the world, but don't know anybody that works there. You don't know anything that's going to happen that day. You don't know what that first person you're going to come in contact with. If it's a service industry, you don't know how that customer is going to be. Oh, here we go. But you start and you work, and suddenly it becomes more comfortable. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you become. And you develop friendships with your coworkers, or at least you develop a relationship of some type with your coworkers. It's the same way when you're doing evangelism. It's not going to get easy unless you get out there and start doing it. And the more that we do it, these levels are going to be, we're not even going to think about levels anymore. It's just I'm going to be the Christian I'm supposed to be. I'm going to be that evangelist. And my level may never rise above connector. It may never. But I'm never going to get to connector unless I start with level 1. Unless I start just greeting people. Unless I start praying about evangelism, it's going to be more difficult for me to be an evangelist. If I don't understand that I'm giving them something that they're not going to get anywhere else, And if I don't start reporting the things that I know to them, if I don't become a sharer, if I don't become a connector, I'm never going to go any higher than that. And so it has to start somewhere. All of us can be evangelists. Let's strive to be what God wants us to be, what Jesus has called for us to be. Thank you for your time and attention, and thank Brandy and Donald for being our role-playing today.